talking about Wellington, which was in rare form, I have to say, over the weekend. Warm, still, sunny. Um, Councillor Tony Randle joins us from the citadel of Wellington in this country, as he usually does. Tony, great to catch up with you again. Nice to see you.
Good to see you too, Michael.
Listen, mate, you had a brilliant weekend. I have to say, I didn't even know that I was in Wellington. I was there in Upper Cuba Street. Gosh, it's humming, that place. I guess you'd like Lambton Key to be looking a bit like that, would you?
Look, Lambton Key has its moments. I mean, I was walking down there on Thursday, and it was humming too.
Mm.
And Saturday is less of a shopping day, I think, that when you were there in the weekend. But you're right that Cuba Street has got a real buzz to it. I think the students help it
Mm.
buzz along, and there's some very eclectic shops, which is one of the things Wellington has long been known for. So
Yeah, it's weird but
it's
wonderful sort of stuff, isn't it, really?
yeah, yeah. And I love the bucket tree. I mean, it's just my
Yeah,
favourite
yeah, yeah. You can't
fountain.
miss out on the bucket tree. That's right. God, in fact, I was a child, so I must have been about 6, 7, 8. My parents drove down from Wanganui to Wellington, I think, to take us to the zoo, as it was then. And it was there. It had just been installed, so it's been there an awful
Mm.
long time. It's iconic. Yes, you're right. Listen, mate. I wanted to talk to you last week, but I'm glad I'm talking to you now because it was about this
Mm.
extraordinary. Here we are talking about abolishing regional councillors and councils, but this extraordinary, in the midst of it all, last week came out that the Wellington City Council apparently have got 350 or 330 too many staff, according to an independent report provided to you. Can you tell me the background to that report?
Sure, sure. So I think I think the person behind it is largely the new chief executive of Wellington City Council, Matt Prosser. So he's came in. He arrived about 7 months ago, and he's from the UK. So he knows nothing really about Wellington specific politics, which is I think largely a good thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And when he came in, he was a very sound sort of guy, and he was picked by the councillors as a sound hand. And we're seeing it in action, I think, here. Back in June, he told us that he was going to commission Deloittes to come in and do essentially an efficiency review. Uh, Part of it was benchmarking Wellington City Council against other councils. So, it's not trying to turn it into some private sector. And this is the result, this Deloitte's paper. And it's really looked at the council services. It's quite well documented. It's quite a short document, but it's quite dense. And it identified that we don't have some good practices, that our contract management is very immature. I'm trying to use my words properly, and that we also, on a like-for-like basis, we've probably got more staff than other councils to do the similar services, and that's where that sort of estimate that we're overstaffed comes from. It's not saying that we're overstaffed from a bottom-up budget point of view or whatever. It just says, compared to other councils, we have more staff,
Well, I mean, the
and if
obvious
we
question to ask next, though, would be, well, if that is the budget, if that is the comparison, and what was the final number, Tony? Was it 300, 330, 350? I can't remember.
355, I think it was. That's if you
355.
add up all of the all of the staff that Deloitte's believe could we could do without and still deliver the same service. So they didn't go and say we're going to do different projects. It wasn't about the Golden Mile stopping or anything like that. It was just saying, to keep delivering the parks and to keep delivering our facilities like for like, we could do better. Our consenting program, our consenting service, Deloitte just went through and said we can do better, and that some areas were quite immature, and we don't have consolidated systems, which is one of the IT side of things, and that caused a lot of duplication and waste.
Okay. I'm sorry, but that number is staggering. I'm absolutely stunned that you would. What's your total FTEs? About 1,000? More than that?
Oh no, it's more like 2,000.
Two.
I think
You've
it's
got
I think it's
2,000 full-time staff at the Wellington City Council.
No, I'm nervous about being quoted. Actually, let me think about this. No, I don't think it's 2,000, but it's like 1,200 or 1,500, something like that. I mean, this is a city of 2,000 and over 200,000 people. So it's, but so they're looking at saying we're maybe overstaffed by 10 to 15%, according to benchmarking against other councils.
The Otago Regional Council's got more population than you have, and its total staff is about 355. So there you go.
Mm.
So I listen. The extraordinary thing is, and it comes out of it though, is I'm not having a go at Wellington City Council or anything. It's the very fact that you've got to commission your own piece of research to do benchmarking when you would think that councils throughout New
Mm.
Zealand would benchmark against themselves all the time.
Yeah, I do. I mean, we've got this organisation called Local Government New Zealand, which, when we're all trying to work together and be efficient, and yet they don't do this work. They spend their time more lobbying about new versions of standing orders and things like that. I'm sorry, it's not an organisation that is itself really focused on what's important. But I hats off to Matt Prosser for essentially biting the bullet, if you like, and really having a good independent look at ourselves. It's not easy to look at. This is a start of a process which is long overdue. And maybe the reason why the numbers are so big is because we have gone for so long without looking at this sort of stuff. We've sort of added a few people here and had a new initiative there, and people turn up and for a project, and maybe they don't leave, and unless you go back and go step back and have a really good look at it, what are we trying to achieve here? What are the basics? What do we really need to do that? Which is what Matt Prosser's tried to do through Deloittes. We're not going to really know that we're on the right track, and all we see is, of course, high staff increases and high rates increases. So this is the mirror.
I've got the number for you by the staff at the Wellington City Council. By the way, it's just slightly over 1,800. So
Wow.
As of October 2023. And then hopefully it's got a number of bands in which your staff are paid as well. So 1,800 full-time staff. Man, you must, along with the, well, no wonder. No wonder,
Well,
can I just say.
Another point was...
carry on.
Yeah, another point they outlined was the sheer number of managers we have.
Yes,
We seem to have a lot of managers at the middle layer, lots of team leaders and managers and this sort of thing. And I get the sense that was one of the things they called out specifically, is that we've got a lot of people on some pretty high salaries in terms of the middle layer between the workers who are, greeting the residents, helping them out, showing them around, cutting the grass, if you will, or being rangers out helping in the bush, and the top tier managers. And they pointed out that there's probably 100 managers, or perhaps more than 100 managers, positions that are probably more than what we need. Now, this is the start of a process. I'm not saying that Deloitte's 100% correct, but certainly they've said this is what we've seen it from an independent point of view, and we need to look at that very seriously.
Yeah, listen, the first place is you always start cutting as middle managers, because nobody knows what they do, and they just stand in the way of service. You never cut the tea lady, and you don't cut the front of staff, but you do cut the middle managers. Right. That's fair enough. The PSA are pretty upset though. I see their National Secretary, Dwayne Leo, says the report's fundamentally flawed, a flimsy PowerPoint presentation that lacks any depth, rigour, or even a basic understanding of what the council's role is. Was that the view of your council laws who were watching this presentation?
No, I think the councillors are very have taken it on board, and we do recognise the council, even me a little, recognises that we are inefficient, and there is room for more savings. He's literally got a working group who's going to of councillors who are going to go and look at the council from a councillor point of view and look for savings. And the fact that the chief executive has got this Deloitte report, which supports the feeling that we have that there are savings to be made, just will reinforce the fact that this work that we're going to do over the next 6 months and perhaps 12 months to relook at our services, relook at the efficiencies, relook at the way we procure stuff, because I think we get ripped off quite a lot. And have we got the right mix of staff to deliver our services? All of those are going to be looked at. But I do want to say that the staff, this is going to go through a proper process. We are a good employer, so I'm not saying that we're going to slash and burn. We are going to do it in a measured way. This is Wellington. We've got to do it properly. Yeah.
Well, no, you're not going to do it properly. You're just going to do it laboriously and very expensively, if that's the Wellington way. Listen, the Working Party of Councillors, that intrigues me. Did you say that Andrew Little has set up a working party to review what? Staff costs, staff operations, staff what?
It's called the Finance and Revenue Review Working Group. And
Right.
it was one of the committees that he set up right at the very beginning. It's going to be chaired by Deputy Mayor Ben McNulty. The Mayor himself is on the committee. I'm on the committee. And it's really going to look at, where we as council can evaluate the priority of the spend. And, I've already asked for copies of the last year's cost spend and that sort of thing, so we can dive in and see, where is the inefficiencies. So this is very, very, you ask, where does the Deloittes report fit? The chief executive's looking at efficiency, but also so are councillors. And so we're pretty lined up on this, and that's you need that line up if you're going to make progress, because it's not a fun job to go through, and as anyone who's tried to cut their budget, it's not a fun job. And saying, can we afford Netflix? Can we afford, what can we spend our money on? But that's what this council has avoided doing for too long, and that's probably why the numbers of savings, and we're talking about tens of millions of dollars of potential savings. That's why those numbers have got so big. And I hope that the mayor will, when it comes to actually making these decisions, the mayor and the council will be brave enough to actually make these hard decisions.
One of the things we've constantly talked about, Tony, and it's an issue within local government, and a very live one, which is why the government's reached for some fairly simplistic solutions, because it knows that it's got to do something. And we'll come to that in a second. Is the line between, this artificial line between governance and management. For some strange reason, although local government New Zealand are a part of the problem, it would appear there are a whole series of things that you as governors, the elected representatives of your community, may not inquire into, because this is considered the strict preserve of staff and the chief executive. And I would have thought that this is one of those areas, actually. Obviously, you are crossing that line.
Yeah, I think as governors, if things are running well, you should sit back and just check the key reports, the key quarterly reports, just to monitor how things are going. But when you have a series of cost blowouts, a series of, everything from the small thing like the bike rack, $500,000 bike rack, right through to recently the $83 million cost overrun on the sludge plant. This indicates that things are not running well, and as governors, that's when I think we have got a right, if you like, to go and dive in a bit deeper to find out what's going wrong and help guide the officers to fix it. Because we need to be, if you're going to change things, we need to understand that the right things are going to be changed, and it's just not, moving the deck chairs around on the Titanic and saying, tick the box, yes, we've made some changes, things are better. We need to get some real better changes if we're going to seriously not continue to make our rates unaffordable. And, that's really hurting the city.
Okay, so a culmination then of the Deloittes report, which I think's identified potential savings of up to $79 million over 3 years, and then of your review working group. You expect, well, you see, and the reason I'm saying this is because you would now know, I think it's been confirmed this morning by the Prime Minister, that the government will be taking to Cabinet and passing through Cabinet before Christmas, so that's not very long to go, it's rates capping legislation and policy that will affect you as well. What has in a funny sort of way, has the whole rates capping issue led you down this path of let's get there first before we have it imposed upon us from central government?
Look, I think over the last, let's say, last 6 or 7 years, the council spend just got out of control, and there were some valid reasons for it. I mean, certainly the councils were hit hard in terms of cost with the COVID, support, and we took on a huge infrastructure spend as well, especially in Wellington, but across the country really, and tried to just start dealing with the water, and all of those things drove costs really high. And what I can see is that now that things are a bit out of control, and the wasteful spending stories have come out so clearly right across the country, that every level of government is trying to react. So you've got the central government trying to do rates capping and make councils efficient, but you've also got councils. Respect to Wanganui
Yep.
Council, which has got a really low rate. I mean, they're already further down the path. They're where I'd like to see Wellington City Council go, where they've
Yep.
actually must have made some hard decisions to keep their rates down so low that you wouldn't need rates capping. But some of the councils, it's just out of control, and the government's trying to put what's the word? Trying to put barriers up to force councils to go down. But I think Wellington City Council, at the moment, this council is trying to deal with it proactively, and so hopefully it'll work together. I mean, we won't screw each other up in terms of timing and legislation and such like.
Well, the relationship between central and local government's fraught at the best of times, but it seems to be particularly fraught now because the government is intervening so critically. And pretty much had a hands-off role. You might argue it was part of the problem in actual fact by imposing greater responsibilities upon local government but not providing any funding for them, as I'm sure you'd be aware. But now the proposal last week announced, last Tuesday afternoon, to abolish regional council laws and ensure that the mayors of those particular regions take over governance. Um, are you ready for that responsibility?
Are we ready for it? Well, I think first of all that they're going to change the governance of the councils before they change the councils. So nothing's going to happen on the ground in the terms of the services in the near future. So no, people don't need to panic that all of a sudden you won't be able to ring up and get
A
report a
consent.
flooding issue and no one will answer the phone.
Mm.
Uh, I think what we are going to avoid though is a situation where we have councils working against each other. I mean, even right now, the councils in Wellington are arguing with each other over a thing called the Regional Policy Statement Proposed Change 1, and different, which is a version of like a regional district plan to a certain
Yeah, that's
extent.
right. Yep.
And the city council is objecting. The city council, and not only just Wellington City Council, but Upper Hutt and Porirua, Lower Hutt are all objecting to the regional council, and the regional council is supporting Forest and Bird, and they're actually having a whole process of review and arbitration and settling issues between themselves to try and get an outcome. So that and we've got officers spending hours of time arguing with each other about what the regional council plans to do at a regional level for environmental protection and economic development. Just one little example is the Porirua City Council objects to the regional council saying that the Johnsonville and Kilburney are regional centres, which gives them some extra development rights. And Porirua is objecting to that city council. And Wellington City Council is objecting to Porirua City Council objecting, and this sort of thing. So it's the councils around Wellington do not work well together, and one of the ways of stopping that is to have one common governance and get them sorted out at the
Yeah, yeah,
governance level
yeah, yeah,
before we argue at the officer level. It's just
yeah.
it is wasteful. It is very wasteful.
So in many ways, this is a halfway house that doesn't really improve things. You're arguing, I think, what I was arguing last week. Why didn't the government just move towards unitary authorities and be done with it?
I think the government's intention, from what I read, is that we're also obliged in the next 2 years to come up with that plan.
Well,
The government's
regional
not
plan.
imposing anything.
Yeah,
We're going to
but
have a regional council structure plan,
mm,
So
mm,
we may decide in Wellington, for example, to have a regional transport authority because we've got a big train network as well as bus services. We
that's
may
right. You have
decide
two.
that we will
Mm.
leave the consenting processes will become all regional. So all the consenting will become through a regional agency. It won't be done at the city council. We might even end up with a regional district plan. All those sort of things can be done now because we don't have this regional council sitting there defending its turf. They've said enough. We're going to have two layers of government. We're going to have central government and local government, and I think it's a really good move. And good on Chris Bishop for finding a good halfway house to get us on the way there.
Okay. How well do your I also noticed last week, in response to this, your new mayor, Andrew Little, saying that it was, I think he used the word inevitable, that there would be an aggregation of the TAs in Wellington and Super Wellington City. And then I noticed, I think, a positive response from Lower Hutt, from Kenny Laban,
Mm.
a positive response to that from the mayor of Pororoa, the lady who's the mayor there. She was returned, and a not quite so positive
Jenny,
response from the mayor of
yeah,
new mayor of Upper
yes,
Hutt Council. But this idea of one Super Wellington City, that also aggregates presumably the regional council functions as well. We've talked about it before, but is there now an acceptance on both sides of the political divide, left and right in Wellington, that this might be the inevitable way to go?
I. I'm first of all, I'm a skeptic of the amalgamation. I'll put that on the table. I think that we need to have. I'm not sure because we've done this before. Back when Fran Weil was chairing the regional council, we tried to do the super city thing in Wellington, and it just came adrift when the
Why did it
councils.
come adrift though?
I think it came adrift for a couple of reasons. I think it was seen partly as a regional council takeover of councils. I mean, the
Right.
fact that she said that we were going to have, instead of having a mayor, we're going to have a Lord Mayor. I think that went down really badly
Mm.
in terms of just flagging what it was going to be like. But also, there are some unresolved issues around how we're going to migrate, because the different councils have been doing their own thing for a long time. And so they've got different problems and different cost structures and uh, and amalgamation. There's a lot of rivalry between them, I think, and we need to work out a path to set that aside if we're going to amalgamate and work out what is the common structure. That's why I'm keener on doing this more service by service than wholesale. I think there's better reasons to consolidate some of the service. Like we should have one district plan. I mean, it's crazy that Wellington City Council's got different rules from Pororoa City Council, which got different rules for having housing and such like. Wellington City Council, I found out if you've got a home business, you're not allowed more than 10 people on your property at any one time. Pororoa and Lower Hutt don't have that rule. These little things make just drive up costs and make life difficult. And so, yeah, it's we tried to do it in one big hit and it didn't work. So maybe we need to do it more piecemeal. Do a transport agency, do a consenting agency, merge the district plans, and then bring together the council ratepayers into one body.
You also, as I said, I mentioned the rates capping legislation, the resource management reform legislation that'll be introduced into Parliament next year. We now know that unlikely to be passed before the election, we're told. But the rates capping legislation will go to Cabinet this month.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I guess that will be also be unlikely to be passed prior to the election, I wouldn't have thought, because it's only going to Cabinet this month. It won't be an executive order. It would have to be a piece of legislation. Does your council have a view on being rates capped?
Oh, I think generally people don't like have extra rules imposed on them when we come and work at our budgets. I think. I mean, the timing is not too terrible, assuming the legislation goes through, because we're at the third year of our long-term plan, and next year, starting in July, we're going to do the next long-term planning, and that's when the councils, the councils make all their big decisions in 3-year lots, and that starts. So the rates capping hopefully will be, if it is going to pass and the government continues to be supportive of it, and after the election, then it will. We will have time to take that into account in our next long-term plan. So I'm not terribly concerned about it, because let's face it, the central government will do whatever it's going to do, and we as local government can only deal with it as it happens.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Tony, thank you. Nice to talk to you again. Look forward to catching up to you next week or so. Have a great week, mate.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you very much, Michael.
Councillor Tony Randle on this extraordinary Deloittes report on what the future of Wellington looked like, and a pessimism, I have to say, on the idea that the Wellington authorities could ever work together.